All right, hello everybody. This is Josh on behalf of Chainmail Supernova. I put out a Twitter poll not too long ago. What kind of game should I make? A code with me thing, and the majority of people chose tower defense, which is something I tried a while ago, but I think I'm better at this now, so I want to take it again from the beginning. Also had a lot of requests for card battler, and I said, what the heck, let's try and do both. So the purpose of this series is to just kind of code along with me. I've done almost no planning, so you can think along with me and see me in all my struggles and everything else. So the first thing I'm doing, I'm using PyCharm, and what I want to do is I want to pip install Ursina, because that is the video game framework we're going to be using for this. So I have this on this computer, but I don't have it within this specific virtual environment. Okay, it looks like it's going along just fine. So while that's loading, what I want to do is I want to create a new file. Nope, it's saying new Jupyter Notebook up there. Where am I? Here we go. File, new. Here we go, Python file. And we're just going to call this main screen. I prefer Pascal case. If you prefer something else, that's fine. You don't have to do things the way that I do. I certainly use Pascal case for my classes and everything else. So if you've never used Ursina before, all you have to do is pip install it, and then we're going to do from Ursina import everything. I know that's not always the best practice, but I think for all of the different things that you may or may not have to use in your game, it's best to just have all of it. All right. Something else I want to do is give myself a little space. We're going to have the main area, and we're going to say app equals capital Ursina and app.run. So this does not do a whole heck of a lot, but you can see, am I still loading? Let's see what this does. Sometimes I try and work before things are done loading, installing, etc., and you wind up with some weird results. But let's see what we get. App equals Ursina, app.run. So this should open a window. Here we go. Now it's starting to do something. And there it is. It's a window. Big deal. Depending on what operating system you're using and everything else, you may have a little X up here, which is nice for closing purposes. Since I don't have that, that's actually going to be the first thing that I'm going to do. And things that are kind of default functions are input and update. Update consistently runs every single frame. Input happens anytime the user does some sort of input. So let's do def input, and you have to say key. And I'm just going to say if key is Q, then application.quit. I kind of actually forget if that's right or not. Whoops. Actually typed then, as opposed to the implied then. Okay, application.quit. What's nice is that even if that doesn't work, then it'll give us an error and it'll quit anyway, and we'll get that right when it matters. That's probably not going to be part of the end result. This is just so that I can close my windows when I need to. All right, so what I want to focus on first is the tower defense aspect, and that means I want to have some sort of background and then some sort of monsters walking around on the screen, and then something to do with towers. So the first thing I want to do is come up with a decent way to make backgrounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make kind of like a tile the background, so we can differentiate between the path and the areas where we might put up our towels. Towels? How about towers? Where we put up our towers, and we can always add to this later. So what I'm going to start with is, how about path? So class, path probably isn't the best word to be using in programming. How about monster path? And every single one of these is going to inherit from the Ursina class called entity, because entities just handle all of the graphics and the collisions and everything else, and whether you need it or not, it's nice to just inherit all of it. So my monster path is going to be an entity, and we are going to do def init self and any key keyword arguments that might come along with it. We are also going to super init self and all the keyword arguments. I'm still never clear on exactly where all that stuff is supposed to go, but I've never had a problem using it everywhere, so that's what I do. All right, what do we need? We want some sort of model for it, so we'll call it self.model. Even though this is ultimately going to look 2D, I actually find it often easier to work in 3D and just make everything super flat. So we are actually going to make this a 3D model of a cube. And since this is the monster path, let's make them, whoops, that colon does not belong there. We are going to make the color brown. So we do self.color equals color.brown. The brown really doesn't look super brown. I'm probably going to change this later. Actually, I'm going to wind up using a texture or something later. This is all placeholder stuff right now. So we're going to have the colors brown. And let's see. Oh, I want to change the dimensions. So self.scale equals, we're going to want, I think 1 by 1 makes sense. And then, but because we're in 3 dimensions and I want it super flat, let's make it 0.01 for my Z. So that thickness is going to be virtually nothing. You'll be able to see it, but that's that. There will be other things we're going to need to do with this, but for right now, I think we can just kind of get a look at what this is going to look like. So I'm going to do the very, very lame thing and just make 2 or 3 of these, placing them where I want them on the screen. I just want to, real quick, get a look at what this is going to look like. So let's go MP1, monster path 1 equals monster path. And I didn't do something smart, like say where the X's and Y's and stuff want to go. I will probably change that in the not too distant future, but for now, let's just say MP1. Actually, let's leave this one alone. Let's change MP2. So MP2 is going to be monster path as well. And we're going to do MP2.x instead of the default of 0, 0. This is going to be 1, 0. And then let's have MP3 be a monster path. And MP3.x is also going to be 1, but I'm going to change its Y to also be 1. Oops, might help if you press Y instead of just assuming your computer can hear you. And when I run, we get, I wish you could see my hands, aha, and you can see just how not brown that looks. That is the reddest brown I've ever seen, but the red is actually a lot more bright red. But you can see this is monster path 1, monster path 2, monster path 3. So we at least have some sort of, a semblance of how we're going to be assembling things on the screen. Let's check my quit. And I don't see an error. Are you telling me that I actually got it right on the first try? Good for me. That never happens. So this is, this is what it looks like. Great. This is not going to be the long-term goal, though. So I'm just going to delete all that. But we see that our class works at the very least like a placeholder. Okay, so in addition to monster paths, I know I said I wasn't doing any planning. I did very little planning, all in my head, nothing written out or anything else. I was thinking about how I want the monsters to go. They're going to be following along in a straight line, and then at some point they're going to need to turn. So I want to have some sort of tile that will actually turn the monsters when they reach that. So, well, we probably won't be using this class for a while. It's going to fit into the whole monster path idea. So let's go class, I'll call it monster turn. It's also an entity. I'm going to copy paste a lot of this stuff because I'm lazy. Copy and paste. So right now it would be exactly the same thing. The first thing I want to do is change the color. So instead of being this brown that isn't brown, let's make it green. Seems like a good color term. And we'll keep the scale and everything else. Eventually, when we get into the actual coding of how the monsters are going to interact, we can create some sort of collision box. And when the monsters enter the collision box, it causes them to change direction, or we'll figure that out when we get along. But I just wanted to differentiate between when monsters are going to be doing a straight path and when they're going to be doing something else. Okay. The other thing we need is other squares that just kind of make up, we'll call it the field. So how about class, even field isn't a good one. How about field tile, which is also an entity. And I believe I'm still copied from before, so I can paste again. And let's make this, oh, I made the other one green. That wasn't smart. Let's call that, how about red? Because then you can see the difference between the brown that's red and the red that's red. And we will make the field be green. Eventually, we will replace all of these things with textures. Okay. As we actually tile our field, there's a bunch of different ways we can go about doing this. I am going to do I want to make a matrix? I think I do. So I've done something like this before. This is, we'll call it map 1. And it's going to be, oops, that's the wrong thing. There we go. It's going to be a couple of, I'm forgetting the word right now. Wow, it's the morning. The square bracket ones. List, or it's not a tuple. I think it is a list. Again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. You can see what I'm doing, what I'm calling it may or may not be correct. Anyway, what I'm doing is I'm basically going to be making a matrix that represents our map, and then we're going to use a couple of loops to generate the map. So map 1, what I'll do is I'll have any field piece be a 0, any monster path is going to be a 1, and any monster turn will be a 2. So let's just make this, based on the size of those squares, let's make it 7 by 5, real small, just to get us started. So I'm just going to plug in a whole bunch of zeros. That's 7, right? Okay. And then I'll put a comma at the end of that. And then we are going to copy paste this a couple of times. Oops. Oh, what did I do? All right. And you can see the result of what happened. I'm not sure how I made that happen, but we are back on track. So that's 7 across, and let's go 1, 2, 3, and 4 more. Gives us 5 that way. Delete that last comma. And so now we have a 7 by 5 matrix. And so I'm a little dyslexic. I tend to always screw this up when I do my nested loops. But if it's screwed up, we'll just turn around and fix things. So eventually I'm going to do this within some other sort of class that generates the map. But right now we're just creating parts and seeing how it looks. So let's just do a nested loop. And I'm going to do I is equal to, what I want, -3. And j is equal to -2. I believe that'll work. This is going to be an upside down of what we're looking at. No, you know what? We don't have to do that. I is -3. I'll correspond with our x's, and we'll move from left to right. J will be +2, and we will decrement instead of increment. And I think this might actually work. I hope it works. Okay, so while I is less than 4, rather than being less than or equal to +3, it's going to do something, and that'll be while j is greater than -3, or we could do greater than or equal to -2, it's going to do something else. And what we want to do is we will say if map 1, and this is where I always get confused. Is it I then j or j then I? Let's try I then j. If it's equal to 0, I almost put that in quotes, that would have been silly. So if it's equal to 0, then we're going to say tile equals, what do we say that was? It was going to be a field tile, right? So field tile. And do I want to change this now? Yeah, let's not be silly. So coming back up to our field tile, after initializing self, we're also going to have an x and a y. And, oh, I forgot a comma. Thankfully, x and y are already what I want them to be. So I don't have to do anything too fancy with that. We'll just say self.x equals x, and self.y equals y. Why is that x underlined? Oh, went away. Good. Okay. That should work. I think it's going to work. So tile.field tile, and then I want it to be I comma j. I comma j, because those are our corresponding x and y values. Now we said that there will be more to this. I'll give myself a little bit of space. We're going to decrement j, right? So j minus minus. I don't know that I've ever actually used that before since practice. That'll be fun. J minus minus. Does that not work? Am I thinking in C# or C++? I thought I could do minus minus. All right, well, I'll tell you what. Minus equals 1. I know for a fact that one works. Okay, that's the problem with jumping around between so many different languages. Sometimes you confuse your syntax. So that's the decrement for j, and we're going to increment I. So I plus equals 1. And what the heck? Let's just run this, see what happens. Nope. It looks kind of good, right? Part of this is what I was hoping for. Oh, I know what went wrong. Do you know what went wrong? What went wrong is that this j is equal to 2 needs to be inside the loop because it needs to keep being reset. So cut. I feel like something else went wrong too, but let's start with this. So now j at least keeps getting reset to 2. Let's see how this looks now. Ah, it worked. How about that? And it even did the dimensions that I wanted. Wow, unbelievable. That almost never happens. Okay, I think it's pretty obvious we can make this a bit bigger. So let's do that. So I'm going to have to change things a bit. Let's see. Looked like I could fit probably 6 more squares horizontally. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And, let's just delete those and copy. And let's see, I could probably do 2 more up and 2 more down. So I had 5, let's do 9 of these. So there's 1, 2, oh, come on, you can't give me some sort of indentation. Is it because of that? That looks better. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oops, 8, and 9. Okay. Now, because I am now 9 up and down, my j's need to go from 4 to -4. And my i's, all right, I forgot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I need to go from -6 to +6. Where is that? Well, I is less than 7. Let's see how this looks. Hopefully it's a nice big green rectangle that fills pretty much the whole, yeah, there we go. Is that a little too big? So here's something else we can do. This is for those of you who don't know anything at all about Ursina. You can adjust where the camera is. I believe the camera default is at -20. And while we're at it, I know how to find out. I have the Ursina API reference handy here, and camera. There's a lot of stuff you can adjust here. Of course, it's not telling us what the default Z value is it? Well, let's find out. So I believe the default Z value for the camera is -20. So let's say camera.z equals -30. So that's clearly zoomed out some. This actually isn't so bad. I think I'm going to leave it like this because we have 13 by 9, which is, a decent sized tile map. We can put enough interesting stuff on here to have a game. And now I'm leaving myself some space around here for various, user interface and displays and stuff like that. So, good enough. I feel like the Ed Wood of video gaming. I tried it. It worked. It's good enough. Let's move on. Okay, so that's what our field looks like now. The thing is, right now all we have is fields. We want to account for the monster turns and the monster path. So if it's this, it's a field. And now let's do if map 1 I comma j, or I then j, not comma j. ij is 1. Oh, I make that an elif, don't I? Actually, it shouldn't matter, but I'm going to do it anyway. Then tile equals, we're going to make 1 be the path, right? What I call that, monster path. Right. Then the tile is monster path, I comma j. And I'm going to stick with the elif because I might include other tile things as well. Map 1 I and j is 2, and the tile is equal to monster turn I comma j. And why is that underlined? I'm guessing, okay, good. So now I'm basically just kind of drawing on here. So let's say I want my monsters to start in here. I'm kind of like drawing a path on a grid. So they're going to come in this far. They're going to turn. Eventually I'll explain how that turn's going to work, to the program, not to you. And let's make this a turning point as well. And how about one more turn, and then we'll go out the bottom of the screen. So just thinking ahead of the things I may want, there may be a good case to make a split path in here somewhere. And I'm probably going to want to have some sort of ending square. Haven't decided how I want to account for when the monsters go off the screen. But that's okay. We don't need to have it all figured out right now. But that's why I kind of continued with this if, elif, because I'll probably include a few more of these eventually. And again, like I said before, all of this is going to wind up in some other master class that I will include eventually. I like to have, I usually call it master control, just sort of like an eternal class that just handles all of the screen switches and everything else. That just comes from experience working with Ursina, which, well, great in many ways, can be a little bit clunky when it comes to changing the scene in your video games. All right, so hopefully this one will look good now. And let's get a look. And I have an error. What did I mess up? Tile equals. Oh, might help if I actually include the. I did it for my field. I did not do it for my monster turn or my monster path. So x comma y, and they're going to need that here as well. And let's try again. Well, interesting. This is not what I expected in the slightest. Let's see if we can figure out how this happened, because that is quite strange indeed. Huh. Oh, of course, I forgot to include these things in this as well. Duh. It was like when you get completely unexpected results. Okay, better in the sense that it's like still like a nice square and everything. However, this is not the pattern that I drew at all. Why would it do that? Okay. This is interesting. J minus equals 1, I plus equals 1. So why would it work and then not work here? Okay, we're going to end it here for today because I need to think on this one. So hopefully we'll figure this out for the next video. Have a good day, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe, please.